These children, if she really fled the royal family because she wanted her children to grow up in a life that did not require media attention, what she is doing is not the truth. And here is what I think about Meghan, because I think she's a malignant narcissist who is a truly terrible person.
There are moments when the mask slips, and when it does, nothing can fix it. No perfectly filtered Instagram post, no emotional podcast confession, no last-minute charity appearance can put it back. And the people who've been watching closely, they see it instantly. They're calling it out, loud and clear. Piers Morgan is not the type to stay quiet. When it comes to how Meghan Markle treats her own children, Archie, who just turned 7, and 4-year-old Lilibet, he's been direct, bold, and backed by receipts. His position is simple. This is not a mother protecting her kids from the spotlight. This is a woman using her children as props, as tools, as her last remaining move in a game she's slowly losing. What Piers has been saying first quietly, now openly, is something a growing number of serious, informed voices are starting to agree with. The whole Archie and Lilibet strategy has nothing to do with love or protection. It has nothing to do with giving 2 young children the quiet, normal life their mother claimed was the entire reason she walked away from the royal family. It's about leverage. It's about money.
She is so cynical in the way that she uses those children and tries to frame any criticism from people like Maureen Callahan or UP Diner or me as, how on earth can you be horrible to these kids? But we're not. It's not about the children at all. It's about you. And it's about you saying one thing, doing another, and then blaming people who are simply reporting on the truth of what you have done.
It's about a brand that's slipping, a public image that's fading fast, and a woman who's figured out with the kind of cold, calculated thinking that's followed her entire career that her children are the one card she hasn't fully played yet. The nerve of it? Absolutely staggering. This is the same woman who told the world she left the royal family to protect her kids. The same woman who spoke publicly about how impossible it felt to raise a family under a public microscope. The same woman who built her whole identity around being a devoted, selfless, fiercely protective mother. And yet here we are, watching her post her daughter's voice online to sell jam, watching her turn her son's name into a commercial brand, watching her move these children around like pieces on a board only she can see, while the rest of us are supposed to smile and say how lovely it all looks. Nobody's smiling. And the people who know this story best?
Meghan's podcast has fallen off the charts. She's been criticized for the content. There are rumors that her As Ever launch wasn't as successful as she considered it. Critically, With Love Meghan was not a success.
They're definitely not impressed either. Tonight, we're going through exactly what's been happening, what Piers Morgan and others have been saying out loud, and what this whole strategy reveals about the woman behind it. Because once you see it clearly, and by the end of this, you can't unsee it. To understand why what's happening right now with Meghan and her children actually matters, you need to understand where she's standing at this moment. And honestly, she's standing on very shaky ground. The Netflix show With Love, Meghan didn't land the way she hoped. The As Ever lifestyle brand got more side eyes than applause, even from people who used to give her a pass. The podcast flopped. The Hollywood comeback she mapped out with full confidence has hit a wall at almost every turn. The A-list friends she expected to show up? Nowhere to be found. And the business empire she promised her husband they'd build together in California? Nowhere close to what was promised. Piers Morgan has tracked every single one of these stumbles carefully, publicly, and without mercy. And he's pointed out a pattern that keeps showing up every time a project crashes, every time a strategy fails, every time public interest in Meghan fades, just a little more something happens. Something involving the children, a photo, a mention, a voice clip. A well-placed reminder that says, hey, she's a mother, she has these beautiful little kids. How could anyone dare criticize her? It's a playbook as old as Hollywood itself.
It was also when we heard Prince Louis's voice for the first time. Right when he turned 7, there was a video release by William and Catherine of Louis talking. And then this video with Meghan and her daughter comes out. So she was trolling the child, Prince Louis, or, the William and Catherine. So Meghan is using her children to troll the royal children or the royal son, and also to use them to help with her, branding.
Struggling star brings out the kids for sympathy, and for a while, it works. It gets clicks. It gets coverage. It quiets the critics, because who wants to be the one going after a mother and her little ones? But here's the problem with that playbook, and Piers Morgan said it plainly. It only works if nobody notices what you're doing. And people have noticed. Millions of people have noticed. What makes this moment hit different is the timing. We're watching this unfold at the exact point when Meghan's brand is at its most fragile. The goodwill she once had back when the public was rooting for her has been almost completely used up. The generous interpretation that she means well, that she's genuinely trying, gets harder to hold on to when you look at what she's actually doing with her children and why. That's the conversation happening right now. The same conversation Piers Morgan has been pushing for a while, and the facts? They back it up completely. So let's get into the details because they matter. Meghan recently sat down for a wide-ranging interview with Jamie Kern-Lima, positioned as warm.
The problem you've got here in a relationship with Meghan and Harry is this is a boy that was pretty much traumatised by media presence when he was little. He didn't really want any of this publicity. He was always attacking photographers. And she's someone, ever since she was on the red carpet, who's craved publicity.
Personal and honest. And in one way, it was honest, just not in the way Meghan planned. She talked about her children. She talked about sending them emails every single day, messages they'll supposedly read when they're older, and finally understand what their mother went through, what she gave up, what she felt. She got emotional. She used the word beautiful so often it practically replaced punctuation. And she very deliberately painted herself as a mother so devoted, so emotionally in tune. She's basically writing dispatches from the front lines of her own remarkable life. Then, just days after standing alongside grieving families advocating for stronger protections for young people online, Meghan posted a video to her Instagram featuring the voice of her 4-year-old daughter, Lilibet. The contrast? Impossible to ignore. Not an accidental moment, not a candid slip. A produced, deliberate, carefully timed release of her youngest child's voice, pushed out to the entire world. A child whose grandfather has never even heard that voice.
How can you talk about safety online and then use your children to go online to help sell your products? You are completely contradicting yourself. I mean, if the internet is so dangerous, why are you putting your children on there? Why are you bullying in a covert way Catherine and William's son? Why are you using your children to get sympathy?
A child the royal family has been denied any real access to. A child whose very existence has been used as a bargaining chip almost from the start. The timing was not an accident. It never is with Meghan Markle. And that's what you have to understand before anything else makes sense. Every move is calculated. Every post is deliberate. Every reveal is timed. And the release of Lilibet's voice dropped at the exact moment something else was happening in the royal world. Something involving William and Catherine's youngest, Prince Louis, who had just turned 8. William and Catherine had shared a sweet, natural, completely unforced video of Louis, a real kid, just being a real kid. The kind of footage that genuinely warms you up because it's just so purely real. And within days, Meghan drops the Lilibet clip. Connect the dots yourself. Several very informed people already have. But let's rewind because that Lilibet voice clip didn't come out of nowhere. It came from a very specific setup. Meghan had been carefully building piece by piece a particular story about herself as a mother, as a woman, as someone who has been misunderstood and mistreated, and who is, above all else, deeply devoted to her children.
But wanting to exploit their royal titles, I think it stinks. And I think what King Charles should do, he should just strip them of the titles. Let them go off and be, celebrities, that's fine. But don't do it in the name of our royal family.
The Jamie Kern-Lima interview was the clearest version of that story, and what caught the attention of those watching closely wasn't what Meghan said, it was what she didn't say. She didn't address the bullying allegations that have followed her for years. She didn't address the staff turnover documented and confirmed by multiple sources. She didn't address the very specific, very serious accusations made by Dr. Sophie Chandaka, a black woman, which means Meghan can't use her usual deflection tactics, who walked away from Harry's own charity, the one built in memory of his mother, and took her accusations straight to the Financial Times. Not a gossip blog. The Financial Times. That's how you know someone means serious business. None of that was touched. Instead, Meghan talked about herself. Through the lens of her children, she talked about herself. Through her emotions, she talked about herself. Through every single question, she found a way with remarkable consistency to circle back to her favorite subject, Meghan Markle. Piers Morgan spotted this pattern early and never let it go because what he saw, what many people saw in that interview, wasn't a woman genuinely opening up about motherhood.
Meghan Markle put out more and more content connected to her children.
Meghan and Harry own their kids' names. They own the domain names, they own the emails, they own everything else. When turning Archwell Foundation into Archwell Philanthropies, they said it was for a family thing so that their children could be involved.
It was a woman using motherhood as cover, using her children as emotional armor, building a version of herself so warm, so dedicated, so picture-perfect, that surely no one could look at it and feel anything other than pure admiration. But here's the thing about armor, look at it closely enough, and you can see the seams. You can see exactly where it was hammered together. And when Meghan talks about her children, those paying attention can spot every single one of those seams. Now, here's where it gets truly jaw-dropping. Sit with this for a second, because it says everything. In the days leading up to that Lilibet voice clip, Meghan had been standing alongside grieving parents who had lost their children, in part because of the pressures of life online. She positioned herself as a champion for children's safety in the digital space. She spoke with apparent emotion about the dangers of exposing children to the internet. She aligned herself with one of the most powerful and legitimate causes of our time, and then posted her 4-year-old daughter's voice on Instagram.
Based on one that wants to be out of the public light, doesn't want his children involved, and that's why we see keep them get the back of their heads, and one that's desperate to utilise that.
And utilise the children.
Just let that land for a second. Piers Morgan did not let it land quietly. He called it out with the full directness the moment deserved, because what Meghan did in that sequence wasn't just hypocritical. It was something far more calculated than plain hypocrisy. She used those grieving parents as a moral backdrop, then turned around and used her own child online for engagement. And she did it in a way that made it almost impossible to criticize, because any pushback could easily be spun as being cruel about a little girl. But Piers Morgan has never backed away from a difficult conversation. His position, one that a growing number of people now share, is that the criticism is never about Lilibet. It is never about the children. The criticism is about a mother making choices those children are far too young to have any say in. Choices that serve the mother, choices that build the brand, choices that keep Meghan Markle relevant at the exact moment when, without the children, she might quietly disappear from the conversation altogether. Because here's what Piers Morgan understands, and what the numbers back up completely. Meghan with her children pulls more engagement than Meghan without them, every single time.
As her clout dwindled, as people lost interest in what she and Harry had going on, she was going to move to the next generation. That was the final card she had to play, Archie.
That's not a coincidence. That's a strategy. Piers Morgan has been one of the most consistent, most vocal, and frankly most accurate voices on this from the very start, and his position on the children's strategy has been clear, documented, and supported by everything that's come out since. His argument made repeatedly, made publicly, made with evidence that's very hard to dismiss is that Meghan's use of Archie and Lilibet is fundamentally dishonest. Not just strategically cold, though it's absolutely that too. Fundamentally dishonest because the entire reason she gave the world for walking away from one of the most respected institutions on the planet was the protection and privacy of her children. She said, directly, that she could not raise her son under that level of public scrutiny, that it was damaging, that it was wrong. that no child should be put through that kind of exposure, and then she made her children the centerpiece of her brand. Piers Morgan has never once accepted the idea that this is a contradiction she stumbled into by accident.
It's almost like Meghan has a disorder. She thinks we can't see the past and the things that she said and understand that this is a woman that has made herself one thing in the past, and now she's trying to rewrite all of this history now that she's in the royal family to be this deprived child with, no one really caring for her.
His view, and it's getting harder and harder to argue against, is that the children were always part of the plan, that the privacy argument was always a convenient cover story rather than a real motivation. That Meghan knew very early in her relationship with Harry that the children of a senior royal would be her most valuable long-term asset, and she has been playing that asset with extraordinary patience and extraordinary calculation ever since. He's also raised something that deserves far more attention than it's gotten: the question of what these children will think when they're old enough to understand all of this. When 7-year-old Archie is older and looks back at how his image, his name, his very existence was used commercially, what is he going to think? When 4-year-old Lilibet grows up and finds out her voice was released to the entire world without her knowledge, without her consent, as a calculated brand moment, how is she going to feel? These aren't abstract questions. They're the exact questions responsible adults are supposed to ask before making decisions about children in their care, and Piers Morgan has been asking them loudly. That thread runs through everything Piers Morgan has said on this subject. Because the children's value their leverage, their commercial appeal comes entirely from one thing: their royal identity. Remove the titles, remove the Sussex name. Remove the connection to the most famous family on the planet, and what you have are 2 children whose mother is a former actress from a legal drama.
Harry and Meghan have quite literally created an even more of a bigger bubble to do with those children, to do with the surrogacy rumors, to do with, how old they are, where they are, and things like that, because they're constantly playing games. They have used the children to weaponize them against the royal.
Perfectly fine, but nowhere near the global pull that currently makes them so valuable. And Meghan knows this, which is exactly why, as Piers Morgan has pointed out, she holds on to those titles while publicly acting like they don't matter. Every reference to Archie and Lilibet comes loaded with an unspoken reminder: these are the grandchildren of a king, the great-grandchildren of a queen who reigned for 70 years, the children of a prince. Strip away that royal connection, and the entire strategy falls apart. That's why she will never willingly let it go. Because here's the thing about Meghan Markle, and patterns she has one, and it is remarkably consistent. Consistent enough that if you know what to look for, you can almost predict it. When a venture flops, the children appear. When the press turns negative, the children appear. When the brand needs a lift, the children appear. When someone, and yes, William and Catherine absolutely register as competition in Meghan's world, generates genuine warmth and good coverage, the children appear. The children are the ace, the trump card, and they are played with a regularity that makes coincidence completely impossible to argue. Think back to the very beginning: Archie's arrival, the unusual decision to sidestep the conventional registration process, keep the godparents secret, and release information in a slow, controlled drip designed to generate maximum coverage while maintaining total control. Some people gave her the benefit of the doubt back then.
Catherine and William are highly engaged parents. We see this reflected, whereas Harry and Meghan, they just give us these little tidbits, and you just gotta wonder, who are the kids with the rest of the time? Meghan is more than willing to fly off to New York overnight just to go to a play, and most moms don't do that.
Maybe she genuinely valued privacy. Maybe she really was just trying to protect a newborn from the intensity of public life. Then the first photos dropped, carefully staged, beautifully lit, released on a schedule any PR team would recognize immediately, and that benefit of the doubt started feeling a lot less solid. Then came the Oprah interview, and in that interview, the children became part of the story. Archie was brought into it to carry the racism allegation, the claim that someone in the royal family made comments about his skin color before he was even born. Regardless of what you believe about that claim, bringing an unborn child into one of the most damaging accusations ever aimed at the royal family is something that deserves to be acknowledged. A child with no voice, a child who could not consent, a child whose very existence was used to make a point. And the pattern has only intensified since. Lilibet's name chosen to honor the late queen, a choice that cannot be separated from its strategic dimension. The announcement made before the palace was even informed. The name itself functioning as leverage, a claim on royal legacy, a way of permanently tying the Sussex brand to the Windsor name at the exact moment when a clean break might have been expected.
The truth about Meghan is she will always find a way in which she thinks she can win. And the casualties are irrelevant, whether it's her father, her old best friends, her first husband. There always will be casualties in her life. The question is, when will Harry become the casualty?
Then came the commercial use of both names through Archwell, the domain registrations, the email infrastructure, the entire framework of a commercial enterprise built around the names of two children who had absolutely no say in any of it. Products, candles, brands carrying the implicit royal stamp of the Sussex connection, all of it pointing in the same direction, all of it confirming what Piers Morgan has been saying from day one. This was never about protection. This was always about something else entirely. And then there's Harry, 41 years old, the man who stood in front of cameras and told the world he was making all of this sacrifice, all of this upheaval, to give his children a better life, a safer life, away from the same machinery he believed had taken his mother from him. So where is Harry in all of this? That's the question people who genuinely care about those children keep asking. Because the children's father, the one person in that household with the standing, the authority, and the moral responsibility to say enough, we are not posting the children online. We are not using their names to sell products. We are not releasing our daughter's voice as a brand moment appears to be completely absent from the decision-making.
She's using their name and likeness and royal titles to sell a candle, and they're not even old enough to consent to being used in that way.
He gives speeches about social media safety. He sits on panels. He flies across the world to warn powerful people about the dangers of the internet for young people. And meanwhile, back home in California, his wife is posting his daughter on Instagram. The level of contradiction required to hold those two things together is extraordinary. And people who know Harry well have noticed something. When it comes to decisions involving the children, the voice clip, the Instagram posts, the commercial use of their names, Harry is notably, almost pointedly, absent from the frame. Not commenting, not endorsing, not visibly involved. Which raises a question nobody in Meghan's camp once asked. Is Harry actually comfortable with what's being done with his children? Or has he, as some have suggested, simply stopped trying to push back against decisions his wife has already made? Because if it's the latter, and the evidence is starting to lean that way, then the story of Archie and Lilibet isn't just about Meghan. It's about a father who knows something isn't right, and has either talked himself into accepting it, or simply given up fighting it. Neither of those possibilities is reassuring when you think about what it means for two small children growing up in that house. So what exactly is the strategy? Because there absolutely is one, and once you see it laid out, it's quite something. Stage 1. Establish the children as precious, private, and protected. This is the foundation. The reason you left the royal family. The reason you walked away from everything. The children must be shielded, and this framing matters because it hands you moral authority. It makes you sympathetic. It puts anyone who questions your choices in the impossible position of questioning your love for your own children. Nobody wants to go there. Stage 2. Drip feed access. Not full access, never full access. Just enough to remind the world these children exist. A hand, the back of a head, a name, a mention. Each carefully timed release generates coverage without undermining the privacy story from stage 1. The mystique stays intact, the control stays total. Stage 3, when the brand needs a boost, escalate. And that's exactly where we are right now. The lifestyle brand hasn't performed, the Hollywood comeback has stalled, the finances are a concern, and so the escalation begins. First a photo, then a mention, then a voice clip, each step quietly normalizing the next, each step pushing just a little further than the one before. And because every step is wrapped in the language of maternal pride, oh, how beautiful. She's just so proud of her babies, the casual observer finds it very hard to see what's actually happening. But Piers Morgan is not a casual observer, and neither are the millions of people who have been paying close attention to this story for years. They see the escalation, they see the timing, they see the commercial backdrop against which every child-related moment arrives, and they understand, with a clarity no amount of sweet voice clips can blur, that what they're watching is not a mother simply sharing joy. It is a strategist deploying assets. The final card. Think about what that actually means. 7 years into this saga, 4 years after the Oprah interview, years of Netflix deals, tell-all books, podcast ventures, lifestyle brand launches, and Hollywood networking, and the final card is a 7-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl who had no vote in any of it. That's where we've arrived. That's the full arc of the Meghan Markle project. And it is, honestly, one of the saddest parts of this entire story, because those children did not ask for this. They did not choose this life. They did not choose to become the commercial centerpiece of their mother's brand. They did not choose to have their voices, their names, their identities turned into leverage. They are children. They deserve better, and the people saying so the loudest, Piers Morgan first among them, are saying it because they mean it, not because they wish those children any harm. Precisely because they don't. Now let's talk about the childhood narrative, because in the same interview where Meghan was using her children as emotional currency, she was also reaching back into her own childhood. And the two things are far from unconnected. Meghan speaks about her upbringing in ways that have drawn serious scrutiny from people who have actually done the research. The dinner tray story, the TV dinners eaten alone, the feeling of being neglected, overlooked, left behind. The picture Meghan paints is of a child who had very little, who had to fight for everything, who was never truly seen or valued by the people supposed to love her most. But the timeline doesn't add up. It never quite has. We know she attended a prestigious private school. We know she traveled to Argentina. We know her father, Thomas Markle, was a television lighting director who earned a solid living and was, by all accounts, including Meghan's own early accounts, the ones she gave before he became inconvenient, an attentive and devoted father. We know she spoke about him with genuine love and affection for years. In speeches, blog posts, interviews, she described him warmly, proudly, as someone who had given her everything she needed. And now he's the villain. Now he's the cold, distant figure, the man who made her eat TV dinners watching Jeopardy. It's the same pattern she applies to the royal family, to former friends, to every relationship that served its purpose and then got rewritten. The past is not a fixed thing in Meghan Markle's world. The past is a resource. Raw material, something to be shaped and reshaped to fit whatever story the present moment requires. Piers Morgan has made this point extensively and powerfully. His argument, and it's well supported, is that a woman who rewrites her own history this completely and this consistently cannot be trusted to present any story honestly. Not the story about her children, not the story about why she left the royal family, not a single word in any interview she gives. And this is where the children's story and the personal story collide in the most uncomfortable way. Because if Meghan is capable of rewriting her relationship with her father, a man she publicly adored for years, then she is capable of rewriting her relationship with her children in whatever way suits her best at any given moment. The emails she claims to be sending them, the warm, devoted image she's carefully constructing of herself as a mother, these are the building blocks of a future narrative, one that will be deployed whenever and however it's most useful. And what those children will make of all this when they're old enough to form their own views, That is perhaps the most consequential open question in this entire story. Because let's be honest about what's actually at stake here. This is not just a story about Instagram posts and voice clips. This is a story about two young children, Archie, who just turned 7, and Lilibet, who will turn 5 in just a few weeks, and what their future actually looks like. They have no relationship with their grandfather, the king, no relationship with their uncle William. They have never properly met their cousins, George, Charlotte, and Louis. They are growing up in California, largely cut off from their British heritage, from the royal family, and from the half of their identity that connects them to one of the most remarkable institutions in the world. And they are growing up with their images, their names, and their very voices being used as commercial and strategic assets by a mother who has framed all of this as an act of love. Piers Morgan has spoken about this with real feeling because the long-term well-being of these children is genuinely at stake, not in the abstract. In the very specific, very real sense that decisions being made right now about how to use these children publicly will have consequences that last for decades. Children who grow up being used as brand ambassadors for their parents' ventures do not generally look back on that with warmth. Children who discover their privacy was treated as an asset to be monetized tend to have very strong feelings about it. And 7-year-old Archie and 4-year-old Lilibet are going to grow up. They are going to ask questions. They are going to look at the record. They are going to find the interviews, the Instagram posts, the voice clips, the emails their mother claimed to be writing while simultaneously using their existence as leverage, and they are going to form views. What has been observed by those who know the situation is something rather telling that Harry, for all his faults and catastrophic misjudgments, does not appear to be fully at peace with this. That he did not truly sign up for his children to become brand assets. That somewhere inside the man who once instinctively shielded his children's faces from cameras, who insisted on keeping their images private, who was genuinely committed to giving them an ordinary life somewhere in there, that instinct still flickers, and it is in direct conflict with the strategy his wife is running. Now, what about the royal family? What about William and Catherine watching all of this unfold from across an ocean, raising 3 children of their own under circumstances that could not be more different, showing a restraint in the face of extreme provocation that has honestly been quite remarkable? The palace does not respond to Instagram posts. The palace does not issue statements about voice clips. It maintains, with extraordinary discipline, the position that it simply does not operate at the level Meghan is operating at, and that restraint is not weakness. That restraint is a very smart strategy. Because every time Meghan posts, every time she deploys one of her children for effect, every time she releases carefully timed content that lands right on top of a positive moment for William and Catherine, the palace's silence is the loudest possible answer. But behind closed doors, the view is crystal clear. Those within the institution who have spoken to trusted sources are unequivocal. What Meghan is doing with those children is considered deeply inappropriate. The use of Lilibet's name as a commercial brand, the posting of her voice online, the deliberate timing of child-related content to overshadow positive coverage of William and Catherine. None of it goes unnoticed, none of it is without consequence. And William, who will one day be king, and who has spoken privately about the Sussex situation with a directness that reportedly surprised those who heard it, has made his position known. He does not believe those children are being protected. He believes the opposite. He believes they are being used. The contrast between how he and Catherine raise George, Charlotte, and Louis, with careful, considered decisions about what is shared and what is protected, with genuine thought about what serves the children versus what serves the brand, and how Meghan approaches the same questions, is a gulf that grows wider every single month. And that contrast is not accidental on the palace's part. When William and Catherine release footage of Louis' natural, unforced, joyful footage of a little boy simply being himself, they are not running a brand strategy. They are sharing a moment of family life in a way that honors the public's affection for the royal family without exploiting anyone in it. That is the difference. That is the line. And it becomes more visible with every piece of content Meghan produces. There's a bigger point here, one Piers Morgan has come back to again and again, through different examples, from different angles, but always landing in the same place. The way a person treats those who cannot protect themselves tells you everything about that person's character. Everything. Children cannot protect themselves from a parent who chooses to use them. Staff members cannot always protect themselves from an employer who chooses to mistreat them. Friends cannot always protect themselves from someone who has decided to discard them. And former family members cannot always protect themselves from a relative who has chosen to weaponize what they know. Meghan Markle has left a trail through every single one of those categories. The bullying allegations from staff, multiple people, across multiple households, documented in outlets as credible as the Financial Times. The close friends who were suddenly no longer close, with no explanation. The pattern of intense relationships that burned bright and then ended abruptly. The family members, her father, her half-siblings, and eventually the royal family itself, who found themselves quietly recast from people she loved into supporting characters in a story only she controls. And now, at the end of that trail, the children, the people with the least power of all, the people who need her most, the people who cannot choose to step back, cannot issue a statement, cannot protect their own interests. They are 4 and 7 years old, entirely dependent on the adults around them to make good decisions on their behalf. And the decisions being made on their behalf are not good. They are not protective. They are not in the children's interests. They are in Meghan's interests. Tom Bower, who has spent more time researching Meghan Markle than almost any other journalist alive, has made a point that lands with particular force here. Bower has tracked the pattern of relationships in Meghan's life and found something that runs through all of them like a thread. Bower has said that the casualties are irrelevant. That sentence deserves a long, hard look, because if Tom Bower is right, and his track record suggests he usually is, then the children are not exempt from that pattern simply because they are children. They are assets in the current chapter. But what happens when they become inconvenient? When they develop their own views? When they push back? When they insist on knowing the royal family their mother has kept from them? Nobody in Meghan's world wants to answer that question. And where does all of this leave the Sussex relationship with the royal family? If you're willing to look at it honestly, the answer is clear: further apart than ever. Archie and Lilibet are the king's grandchildren. They are William's nephew and niece. They are cousins to George, Charlotte, and Louis. They share a bloodline with one of the most remarkable families in the world, and they don't truly know any of those people. Not in the way cousins know each other, not in the way grandchildren know a grandfather, not in the way a family knows itself. And Meghan Markle made that choice. She chose to keep those children away from their own family. She simultaneously chose to use those children's connection to that family as a commercial and strategic asset. She found a way to have it both ways: the royal connection without the royal relationships, the prestige without the proximity, the value of the brand without the inconvenience of the actual people. Piers Morgan has called this one of the more calculated moves in a saga that has never been short of them, because those people, whatever their imperfections, whatever went wrong, whatever genuine difficulties existed, they are those children's family. Archie and Lilibet have a grandfather who is a king, an uncle who will be a king, cousins they've barely met. And they are being denied those relationships, while their connection to those same relationships is being monetized. It cannot last. At some point, whether through the children's own growing awareness, through a shift in Harry's position, or through circumstances nobody can yet predict, the reckoning will come. The children will be old enough to understand what was done and why. And on that day, Meghan's carefully constructed image as a protective, devoted, beautiful mother will face its most serious test. So what does all of this tell us at the widest possible view? It tells us the Meghan Markle story is entering its most consequential chapter. The early chapters were about ambition, a woman who wanted to be part of something extraordinary and decided the terms weren't quite right. The middle chapters were about conflict, the Oprah interview, the Netflix documentary, the books, the allegations, the endless machine of claim and counterclaim. But this chapter, the one we're in right now, is about what happens when the strategies run out, when the options narrow, when the well starts to dry up. And in this chapter, Piers Morgan's red proves most accurate because he identified, earlier than most, that Meghan would eventually turn to the children. That they were the one asset she hadn't fully played yet. That, when everything else stalled, the deals, the partnerships, the Hollywood connections, the podcast ventures, the children would move to the center of the strategy in a way they hadn't been before. And here we are, exactly where he said we'd be. The pushback building stateside is real and it's significant. Americans who were, for a long time, far more sympathetic to Meghan than British audiences are increasingly seeing past the carefully constructed image. The interviews meant to generate warmth are generating skepticism instead. The lifestyle brand meant to capture a devoted following is struggling to find solid ground. The Hollywood connections meant to open major doors are proving far less reliable than expected. And through every stumble, every failure, every piece of coverage that doesn't land the way she planned, the children are there, ready to be deployed. Archie and Lilibet, the ultimate safety net. The thing that, for now, keeps the conversation going, keeps the clicks coming, keeps the brand alive. But Piers Morgan's final word on this is about accountability, about the fact that strategies built on using people, especially children who cannot protect themselves, tend to produce their own consequences. The record doesn't disappear. The internet, which Meghan so loudly wants to make safer for children, has a very long memory. And one day, two young people are going to sit down and read that record, and they are going to have questions their mother will find very difficult to answer. Because you cannot tell a child you protected them while the evidence shows otherwise. You cannot tell a child you loved them above everything else while the record shows their value was calculated commercially. You cannot tell a child the choices you made were for their benefit when the benefit consistently flowed in one direction only. The strategy, as Piers Morgan has made clear, has always been visible to those who looked, and increasingly, the whole world is looking. Before we wrap up tonight, there are two questions worth sitting with, questions that have been underneath everything we've discussed. If Archie and Lilibet were not royal, if their names carried no connection to the most famous family in the world, would we still be seeing them used the way we are? And the more personal one, if you were one of those children growing up in that house, with that record being built around you without your knowledge or consent, what would you want your mother to have done differently? Those questions don't have easy answers, but they are absolutely the right questions to ask, and the fact that we're asking them is, in its own way, a form of accountability. The record exists. It is not going anywhere. If tonight's video gave you something to think about, hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people find this content and join the conversation. If you're not subscribed yet, now is the time. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss what's coming next. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about what's really going on here? And if you know someone who's been following this story, share this video with them. I guarantee they'll have plenty to say. See you in the next one.